Hey, Bulldog fans, John McAfoo's here, and over the next couple of weeks, we'll be talking with several Samford coaches, current and former student athletes, and administrators about COVID-19 and the impact it's had on these programs and individuals. And to kick things off, I'm happy to be joined by Samford softball head coach Mandy Burford-Johnson. Coach, always appreciate you taking some time. I know we've all got a lot more of it to go around right now.
Yeah, a lot of free time on our hands.
Well, it's certainly been a whirlwind for everybody, really, in all walks of life. But obviously, this is something that has impacted the sports world in a major way, especially for those that were in the midst of their season. And you, of course, fall into that category. And I can't imagine the kind of adjustment that's been needed for coaches such as yourself to go from being right in the middle of your season to suddenly having no games to prepare for. You're working from home, essentially turning your attention towards next season. Just talk a little bit about what that adjustment and process has been like for you.
Yeah, I think a large part of our job is kind of trying to plan for the unknown, our opponents and different scouting reports and just making plans for the future. And so the biggest obstacle for us right now, I feel like, is nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Nobody knows how long this is going to last. There's often a phrase that, decisions that are driven by fear never have a positive outcome. So, it's just trying to control what we can control, which is our mindset right now, and making the best of a bad situation.
Let's jump back to a couple of weeks ago when this all unfolded. You had a couple of midweek games against Troy and Bryant as this all kind of went down. On that Wednesday, after your game against Troy, the dominoes started falling a little bit. Shortly after the game, the university announced that classes would move online following spring break. NCAA announced that March Madness would be played without fans. And then later that evening, the NBA canceled its season. Those were kind of the first major dominoes in the sports world. And then the next day, the rest of the sports world essentially shut down. And you guys played a game in the midst of that, which we'll get to in a minute. But for you, when did you start to get that feeling that your season might be coming to a pretty abrupt end?
Yeah, the girls, I guess, got an email that there was a chance we could go to online classes, after spring break. So they were kind of talking about that as they were stretching for practice. And I just kind of said back, like, well, when that happens, you can prepare for season to cancel, because if you can't come to school, then we can't do much more. And we went to Miami the weekend before those midweeks. And when we were traveling, everybody was nervous because we started seeing people in masks. And I think that's when the pandemic kind of started. And so our minds started transitioning to it then. And then kind of like, as you said, once we returned from Miami on Monday night, we had a day break, and then Troy and Bryant, and then boom, everything was done.
Yeah, let's talk about that Thursday game against Bryant. Again, that morning and afternoon leagues and conferences were kind of canceling spring events, what seemed like every other minute. And the Northeast Conference, which Bryant is a member of, canceled spring sports really almost immediately before your game against them. And as you know, the SoCon ADs had a conference call in the midst of that game to talk about what direction the Southern Conference wanted to go. And I know for everyone who worked that game, myself included, it was a very surreal feeling the whole time, before, during, and in the immediate aftermath. But what was the feeling like for you in the dugout that day?
Yeah, kind of when we started pregame, the girls had a lot of questions, and I had just kind of gotten confirmation from administration that the game would be played. So in my head, it was more of, okay, we're going to play this game, but not necessarily we're going to cancel the season. It was just, we're going to get this game in, we might have a short break, a couple weeks or something, and then we come back. And it was more focused on the present, which was the game. And then it was just kind of like, it was an eerie feeling that day, like kind of like on the field and with the fans. And it was just, it was different. It was one of the more different games I've ever been a part of.
When did you find out? Was it after the game, or did you find out in the middle of the game?
Yeah, after the game. I think you and I discussed it, but the senior leadership team, there were several members of the athletic department that were coming down. And, in my head, it was just more like, okay, it's a midweek, it's spring break, people are getting out of the office. And then it just felt different. There was a different vibe. And, whenever I heard that, the NCAA had canceled the spring sport championships, it made sense to me of what the surroundings were.
I know you've had countless hard emotional talks with your teams over the years throughout your coaching career, but I'm guessing your conversation with them immediately following that game against Bryant was probably one of the hardest moments of your coaching career.
It was the hardest moment because it was emotional, and kind of what I was talking about with the fear and that driving your expectations. Nobody knew. And so, the seniors are starting to cry. The players are looking at me. The parents are in the stands, and I don't know what's going to happen. And, when adversity hits you, you want to have a positive outlook on it. And at the time, I didn't know what that outlook was. I just knew that There's a saying a lot of the times about deserving something and earning something. You earn the right to do things. And I knew that this group had earned the right to play. And so it was hard for me to look them in the face and say, hey guys, we may be done. Your careers may be over. It's been a great ride, like that wasn't the time for it. And so it was more of, well, let's kind of wait and see.
There's obviously been a lot of talk about eligibility for seniors, and there's nothing official at the Division I level yet, but we do expect something a little more concrete in the next week or two. And it's expected that at the very least, spring sports seniors will be given a blanket waiver and have the option of returning next season. If that is the case, can you foresee any of your current senior class coming back in the spring of 2021?
I do. I think a lot of them are unsure right now. Some of them had, plans for when they graduated. It's the first time we've had, the majority of our class that was really going to graduate on time. A lot of them had looked at grad schools. Some of them are supposed to get married. It's just, who knows, and it's kind of going back to the impact that they would leave on the program. Like, yes, I wanted them to finish their senior year. Yes, they deserve a senior day. Yes, like they've earned the right to do all of these things, but the impact that these 5 have had, not only on the program, but on their teammates and on myself, has just been tremendous. This group of girls was just incredible to be around. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that they're going to make a huge impact on the world. So whatever they decide, I'm going to be happy for them and I'm going to be proud for them. And I know they're going to be really successful.
You're obviously in close contact with the whole team. There was such a shock factor, I'm sure, for them at first. Now that we're a couple of weeks removed, how have they handled it over the last couple of weeks?
I think they're doing the best they can, and that's kind of the message I sent to them last night whenever we found out that school was going online for the rest of the semester, was that they're going to handle this with dignity and grace like they do everything else. It's just going to take them some time to process it and to understand that their day-to-day life is changing. The online classes, that's been a major adjustment for them. I know that they're, John, I can't imagine being in college. When I went home for Christmas, it was great, but it was like, when do I get to get back? When do I get to be around my friends? And, when I started thinking about it last night, they're kind of told, hey, go home for a couple of weeks. Hey, go home for a couple of months. Oh, hey, I might not see you in 5 months. So I'm just trying to support them the best way I know how. And, just try to talk to them, try to be there for them, try to give them the best advice that I know how to do. But I know in the end that they're going to respond greatly with this. It's just probably going to take a little time.
Your day-to-day life has certainly changed as well. What does the next month or two look like for you?
Trying to plan, I guess. It's given me a lot more time to catch up on busy work. Starting to look at the 2021 schedule. I know we got an email today from the SoCon about some conferences are deciding whether or not they're just going to take their 2020 schedule and move it to next year, or if we'll go right back to 2021 with the travel and away of going back and forth. So I don't think anyone really knows. I think we can, try to plan for fall games, try to plan for the 21 season, and then try to look at recruiting this summer.
Mandy, I really appreciate your time. Hopefully you can find some sense of normalcy in the next couple of weeks and months.
Thanks. I appreciate all you guys do.
That's Samford softball head coach Mandy Burford-Johnson. I'm John McAfoose. Stay tuned to our Samford Athletics social media channels as we continue to bring you more interviews with Samford coaches, athletes, and administration. Stay safe, everybody.